Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Skinner. Today, this is the recording for Chapter 2 of the Administration of a Computer-Based Management Information System. And today's chapter is all about, as you can see on the screen, gaining competitive advantage through information systems. Today, we have 3 learning objectives. The first, let's read it together, discuss how information systems can be used for automation, organizational learning, and strategic advantage. Secondly, we can describe how information systems support business models used by companies operating in the digital world. And then lastly, explain why and how companies are continually looking for innovative ways to use information systems for competitive advantage. So, our first objective, discuss how information systems can be used for automation, organizational learning, and strategic advantage. And in this context, we're going to be looking at about 10 to 12 different aspects. These include organizational decision-making levels at the operational, managerial, and executive levels. What's the difference between them? We're going to be looking at different functional areas. So in different areas of the organization, such as accounting and sales and operations and so on and so forth, being at one of the 3 different levels, how does that impact us from an information systems perspective? We're going to think about information systems for automating. We're going to think about information systems for organizational learning. Okay. Overall, remember, we're trying to think about the role that technologies and information systems have on influencing the ways to better compete in the marketplace. That's what we're actually all about. How can we be more competitive? We're also going to look at information systems for supporting strategy, where to compete, generic strategies on how to compete, and resources and capabilities. This thing called the value chain. What is it? How can we analyze it? How does it help us? We're going to see the role of information systems in this value chain, and then we're going to talk about strategy and technology fit. So let's begin by looking at organizational decision-making level. Most businesses have 3 levels of management with 1 or more layers of managers in each level. Let's start from the top and go down. So at the very top, we have this executive management. Here we have them at the executive level. These guys include top-tier management who are focused on the long-term strategic business decisions, I can't say that, decisions such as how are we going to compete as an organization? What price should we set our product versus what quality should our products have? What countries do we do business in? Kind of longer term, bigger, more important decisions for the whole of the organization. As we come down a level to the managerial tactical level, this is more focused on running the organization to meet the strategic goals set by the executive level. Typically, all the decisions being made in this area have a management time frame of 3 to 12 months, something like that. In the executive, it's probably looking at anything up to 5 years in the future. At the managerial, the tactical level, typical decisions might include, for instance, where am I going to place additional stores in existing markets? Where should they be opened? It's that kind of thing. And then we come down to the operational level, the day-to-day stuff. So this is where operational employees and management perform the day-to-day work of the organization. They're making decisions on a day-to-day basis. So for instance, if I'm a shift manager at Walmart, that would be operational management, whereas store manager at Walmart would probably be the lowest level or middle of tactical management. Okay, so you can have layers of management within the operational, managerial, and executive levels. Let's look at these 3 levels in a little bit more detail. This time we'll start at the bottom at the operational level, because that's where we all begin, and then we'll go up. So the operational level, who we have on there, the foremen and the supervisors, that's the management level you could expect at operations. So we're all about automating routines, lots of repetitive activities, lots of repetitive events. It's all about improving organizational efficiency. So operational information systems, therefore, primarily focus on process automation. This can include automating routine activities, as well as automating and optimizing structured decisions, such as things like employee scheduling. So the focus is all on efficiency. This is the routine day-to-day stuff. Time frame, a few hours or a few days. Decisions being made, pretty structured, pretty straightforward. So for instance, what would we see here from a management perspective, a supervisory perspective? We're looking or an information systems perspective, we're looking at something like an inventory management system in a shoe store. All right, so think about a shoe store, and I'm thinking about my information system in that context. I'm going to be tracking inventory. I'm going to be ordering new inventory when the number of shoes I've sold drops to a certain level. So as an operational manager, I'm simply going to be confirming that, yeah, when we hit a certain level of inventory, we've sold enough shoes, we need to order new ones in. So it's pretty basic, it's pretty mundane, it's pretty short term, nothing really crazy about it. And that's kind of what we think about when we think about management decisions and information systems at the operational level. At the managerial or tactical level, so we've gone up a little bit, decision-making is a little bit less structured. Okay, so at the very lowest, the operational level, decisions are pretty structured, right? When I get to a certain level of inventory, I've got to order more shoes. Pretty simple. At this level, it's a little bit less structured. There's slightly different focus as well. So we're talking about mid-level managers and the functional managers, and we'll talk about functional managers in a little while. There's a these are the people who sit in the different functional areas within the organization. So instead of efficiency, we're more about automating the monitoring and controlling of operational activities. So beforehand, we were automating the routine and the repetitive activities and events. Now we're automating the monitoring and controlling of those operational activities. Okay, so where we had efficiency as our focus at the operational level, here we're trying to improve operational effectiveness, which is the extent to which goals and tasks are being accomplished well. So at the managerial level, information systems are typically focused on helping middle management exercise control more efficiently and effectively, and on helping them make these kind of semi-structured decisions with better input and resources. So it's all about monitoring and controlling the operational level beneath them and providing information up the chain to the executive level above them. Okay, so you'll find here that there's a focus within specific functional areas of the organization. So if you're a sales manager, or if you're a marketing manager or an accounts manager, you can have a focus in your own area. The decisions you're going to be making are pretty complicated, less structured. Time horizons slightly longer than an operational level. We talked about it before. As an example of kind of the decisions being made, I might be a marketing manager at a company like Nike, where I'm deciding how I'm going to allocate my advertising budget for the next quarter. So you can see there straight away, there's a step up between managing and pressing buttons for the inventory reorder for a shoe shop versus allocating advertising budget for the next quarter. Slightly more complicated. I actually think that the managerial level is perhaps the most difficult level to be in an organization. You can take that from me in my own experience, because you're stuck in the middle between the people above you who are never happy and the people beneath you who need direction, and you've got to kind of face off both ways. You're in the middle. The people beneath you only have to go up, the people above you only have to come down, but you in the middle have to face off in multiple ways. And so it's quite a tough ask being a managerial level, and to get up to the executive level is very, very difficult. And I've spent many years in the managerial level. I probably got to the very top of the managerial level without breaking through to the executive level. As I say, it's very, very tough, and as I say, quite complicated. And so to the giddy heights, the ivory towers of the executive level. All right, crikey, what do we have going on up here? So there's oh, I've gone the wrong way. What am I doing? Here we go. Who do we have? We have executive level managers. So these guys and girls are looking at the long-term decisions. What do they say here on the right? Aggregate summaries of past organizational data and projections of the future. We're making big decisions about where the future direction of the organization is about to go. Okay, so we're focused on helping executing managers understand the current business. So we, from an information systems, are going to provide performance data from all the different areas of the organization to see what's going well and what's not going so well. We're going to provide tools to support kind of the executive decision making, such as forecasting and planning tools. At this level, the decisions are often very, very poorly structured. You're having to have people who are making decisions on not very much information. Okay, so the focus at this highest level is on the longer term strategic questions. Problems are going to be complex, they're going to be broad, they're going to have long-term ramifications for the company. As I said, decisions are going to be pretty unstructured. There's going to be very few procedures to follow. At this level, information systems are typically used for aggregating trend summaries, so for trends and projections on the future. I'm going to provide things like KPIs, key performance indicators, and these are kind of giving you a idea of which areas of the organization are doing the best. So we kind of look at these different levels horizontally. What about looking at different levels of the organization vertically? So if we kind of blend the two, the executive, the managerial, and the operational level with these different functional areas, we can see in our pyramid that, for instance, we have many, many different areas and many, many different roles. So organizations typically are organized along functional boundaries as well as along managerial levels. And therefore, managers within each function at each organizational level have unique information systems needs. Okay, so for instance, here we have 5 different functional areas. If you look at the bottom, we have accounting, finance, HR, marketing, and operations. Okay, and each of these different areas are going to have their own information system needs. And then as we go up through each of the 3 levels, operational, managerial, and executive, for each of those levels as well, they too will have their own unique information systems needs. So for instance, if we look at, I don't know, HR, let's look at HR. So at the operational level, from an information systems needs, we can see that the information systems need for operational HR is employee skill inventory. So essentially what we're doing is we're just tracking and maintaining what skills what employee has. Okay, and we're just recording that. So if we have people in the organization, these are the skills they have. And the information systems there, it's just us to help us with that knowledge. As I come up a level to the managerial level, still within HR, I can then move into, what is it, compensation analysis. So now I'm thinking about, from an information systems perspective, again, what is the most appropriate compensation I should be paying for the different roles and functions throughout the whole organization. So the need for the information system has changed. It's much more complicated. I'm now doing analysis on what is the appropriate payment and compensation I should be giving to all the employees throughout the organization. And then I go up to the executive level and I'm looking at the top HR people in the organization. And here they're looking to the future and they're understanding, okay, what are my future personnel needs going to be in, say, 3 years' time? What do I need to do to be placed so that I can meet and manage that need? So it's about personnel forecasting. So I'm using information systems to kind of gameplay, role play almost, and make decisions about what I need down the line. So you can see, even within one functional area, in this case HR, the needs from an information system are very, very different. And we need to kind of realize that that is the case. It's not just within the vertical functional areas. We also need to think about the needs of information system at different hierarchies within the organization. Okay. If we do deploy information systems across different levels and at different functions, we also realize that as a result, we're getting value from our information systems, of course. And we get this from through 3 broad different areas, right? So we can use information systems to automate. We can use information systems to help us learn about the organization. And we can use information systems to execute or help us execute on our organizational strategy. These are the 3 ways that IS generally help. In a little bit more detail, information system creates value in 3 ways. They help us do things better, they help us to do things faster, and they help us to do things smarter. So actually faster, better, and smarter. That's what information systems do, and this is the value they bring to an organization. Let me give you an example. Okay, so here we have an example of a loan, okay? This is a loan whereby organizations are approached by, I don't know, somebody who wants to buy a house and they're looking to get a loan of anything from, I don't know, let's say $200,000 to $500,000. Okay, let's look at, first of all, in the left-hand column, the primary activity that needs to be go through when a loan is being considered. And then the right-hand three columns, manual loan process in time, tech-supported process in time, and fully automated process in time. Let's look at the value that information systems bring. So the thing to realize before I kind of go down that path, computers can automate existing business processes to various degrees. Depending on the process, this may or may not be significant. So let's look at the manual loan process times. If I'm going to do this loan processing by hand myself using my own skills or my team skills, we've got what activities? So we've got 7 activities. Here we go, 6 activities. Complete and submit the application. So that takes 1.5 days manually. We're going to check the application for error. That's going to be 2.5 days. We're going to input that data into the information system. It's not applicable because there'll be some paper handling. We're doing it by manually. We're going to assess loan applications under 250K. That's going to take just over 2 weeks. If it's over 250 days, it's going to take 15 days. And then the applicant is going to be noted once a week. So the total time, if you do it manually, is anything from 25 to 40 days. That's a long time. But when you're talking about lots of money, you can understand why. If I bring in tech to help me do that process, okay, we can see straight away that the benefits are when we're doing the assessing of the loan application. So if it's computer assisted, it goes from done by hand of 15 days to 1 hour. Okay, so applicant can be notified more quickly. So straight away, tech supported time, the use of information systems to help us make a decision that's going to be valued to the organization. We're cutting the time to potential clients for being informed whether they've been successful in their loan application or not, from 25 to 40 days down to 5 to 20 days. Great, that's a real benefit of using technology to help us make decisions. But what about if we get computers to do everything? Can we get them to do everything completely? So now we can look at complete and submit application online, 15 minutes. Check application for errors, computerized, 1 second. Input data into the information system, already done. Computer process assessment, 1 second. If it's big, it's still going to take a long time. Applicant notified, 1 second by email. 15 minutes? Wow. If we are able to leverage technology so that we can make a decision within 15 minutes and our competitors can't, do you think that we're going to suddenly be much more attractive than those who are also offering loans, who also want to find those great applicants like Dr. Skinner, who can be trusted to be taking out a loan and repay it in full without any issues? Absolutely. Use of information systems in such an environment can really make us competitive. Well, furthermore, it's not just about the technology, right? If I'm automating or if I'm using tech support, right, I can allows my employees that were being involved in the manual time of things to be deployed more efficiently. They can be freed up to do other things. So there's going to be even more cost savings. I'm going to become even more efficient. Okay, so the information systems for automating, doing things faster, more cheaply, greater accuracy, possibly, more consistent. Yeah, I think so. But information systems for automating, it's not just about for automating, it's also for learning as well. We can use information systems in our organizational context to learn about where we are good at doing things and where we're not. So information systems can help us track information. They can help us identify how the business is functioning in general and at different times of the years. And managers, as a result, can learn from this information and they can use it to run the business more efficiently, planning in advance how they handle, for instance, seasonal demand fluctuations or changing business processes that are flawed and generating problems, such as, for instance, approving loans that will be defaulted. Okay, so we can learn and we can improve as a result of being able to use information systems for organizational and learning. Okay, so here, for instance, we have a computer-based loan processing system that tracks different types of loan applications by date, month, or season. Okay, managers can set trends and therefore plan for finding staffing and training of personnel in the loan department and manage funds available for loans. So for instance, in the summer, they can make sure they can see that home mortgages numbers are going to be going up. We can make more money available for home mortgage loans in the summer compared to the winter. We can find out more about we can also find out more about the nature of the loans themselves. We can, for instance, I don't know, find out that auto loans are by men in the fall in their 20s and 30s, for instance. We can learn as a result of information systems. Okay, so it's all about using learning as well. We have to be careful though. We have to be careful because if there's an issue in there and there's an error in the way that we use the automation of information systems, learning and automating can be very effective together. We bring automation and learning together. But if you've got incorrect data, you're going to be learning incorrect information, and that could have a disastrous impact on the organization. So we've thought about information systems for organizational learning. We've thought about information systems for automating, doing things faster. What about for doing things smarter? Although automating and learning are good approaches to information systems, ensuring that expenditures are for systems that match the corporate strategy is also critical. All right, so we need to think about what is the organization all about? Where is the organization going? What is the nature of the organization? Once we have the understanding of the nature of the organization, what we call its organizational or competitive strategy, then we need to make sure that our use of information systems ties directly in to this competitive strategy. Okay, for instance, let's say I am an organization that makes low-cost cars. Okay, I'm a low-cost car manufacturer. Would it make sense for me to invest in information systems to implement a highly sophisticated and very expensive quality control system that rivaled the quality control systems of Ferrari for a low-cost car manufacturer? And the answer is, of course, no, it wouldn't. Our competitive strategy is to be competitive on low costs, right? I'm in the car industry. I'm going to be competitive by undercutting the price of my competitors. I don't need to have a high quality car, right? I am not going to spend information systems on ensuring a highest quality that match a Ferrari, though I have to say I've driven Ferraris. I never really liked them. I'm not going to spend the money on information systems for making sure that my car is high quality because it doesn't make sense to do so. That would be an example of my information systems not tying in to support the organization's strategy. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. Customers aren't buying the cars because of their high quality. They're buying the cars because they're low cost. And the system, therefore, the information system, wouldn't generate an appropriate return in investment. Okay, so this strategic planning, we need to make sure that we understand what strategic planning is all about in the organizational level, and then we need to make sure that the information systems tie in to that strategic planning. Okay, and when we actually do the systems analysis and design class, if you've not done it already, you'll know we spend a couple of classes on this, making sure that when we select the projects to move forward, that they are really well tied in to that strategic direction of the organization. So strategic planning, this is when the execs form a vision of where the organization needs to head, and they convert that vision into measurable objectives and performance targets, which is our strategy. Okay, it's more than automating, it's more than learning, it's making sure that we can use information systems to tie in to the direction of the organization is going. So the question now becomes, how can organizations better use their resources to be competitive. Because if we understand how we can use our resources, including information systems, about how to be competitive, then we're going to be more competitive. And if we're going to be more competitive, then we're going to have a better chunk of the market, we're going to generate more revenues, our stock price is going to go up, our shareholders are going to be happy, and everybody drinks more wine because their bonuses are better as a result. So how do you understand as an organization how you're going to compete? Where are you going to compete? What are the forces that you need to be aware of when you're deciding how you as an organization are going to compete? There's a very famous model here, and this is called created by Professor Michael Porter, and it's called Porter's 5 Forces. Okay, so companies, when they wanted to think about how they're going to compete in a market, they need to understand the forces acting within the industry and therefore on their organization. So Professor Michael Porter at Harvard, he created this framework in 1979. We called it Porter's 5 Forces, which is still widely used 41 years on. Okay, so if you're in an established industry, you're an organization that needs to position itself within that industry to best counter the effects of these different 5 forces. Okay, we're going to see what are these 5 forces. So we have rivalry amongst existing firms in our industry. How much rivalry is there in my industry? How much bargaining power do the buyers of my product have when it comes to setting the price? Okay. Conversely, what is the bargaining power of the suppliers who provide me with the raw materials that I need to make the product that I'm selling? Mm-hmm. What's the threat of substitute products or services? How much threat is there by somebody else's offering exactly what I offer? Okay. And what's the threat of new people coming into my industry, and how can I counter the fact that new people might be coming in? Let's look at where and how to compete in a little bit more detail. Okay, and we'll look at these, and we'll also look at this in the context of the internet, because the internet, as we talked about last week, the role of globalization and things like that has a really significant impact on our ability to be competitive. So here we have 3 columns. On the left-hand side, we have our 5 competitive forces: rivals within your industry, new entrants, customers' bargaining power, suppliers' bargaining power, and threat of substitute products. Then we have the implication for the firm, and then the internet influence on the competitive force. Okay, so let's look at the implications for firms, just generally. So if you have rivals within your industry, what does that mean from the implication to your firm? Well, they're going to compete with you on price, on the ability to distribute your products, on the services that you offer. Okay, fair enough. If you can have new entrants coming into your industry, what does that mean? Well, you're going to have more people in there, increased capacity. It means there's going to be more competition, prices are going to need to be reduced, and you're going to lose market share. If customers have strong bargaining power, you're going to have to reduce your prices, and they are going to be in turn demanding better quality service for what you are offering. Alternatively, suppliers have a bargaining power, you're going to have to pay more and probably going to have reduced quality. And then the threat of substitute products, if there's a high threat of substitute products, then maybe you're going to have to, the generation of the return on the product is going to be less, you're going to have decreased market share, and you're going to lose customers as a result because they'll go elsewhere. There's more competition. If we look at that from the internet perspective, the role on each of these competitive forces, so the internet, rivals within your industry, well, guess what? In the old days, it was just people who were located physically near you. No longer. Geographic reach is no longer an issue. People can be far, far away and they can compete with you in your industry. It's now more easy for potential customers to compete on product comparison. Go online, find a cheaper product, away you go. New entrants, well, it's now much less difficult to compete because you can be located anywhere. The internet has opened up markets on a global basis. Okay. And the critical resources you need to be competitive, again, historically, they may well have been located nearby where you are located, but now they can be anywhere. from a customer's bargaining power perspective, much wider customer choices, much easier to switch to an alternative if they've gone to you beforehand, much more bargaining power for customers. From a supplier's perspective, suppliers now can equalize the access to suppliers. So actually, the internet gives you more strength because you as an organization can go to other suppliers and potentially be more competitive when it comes to interacting with your suppliers. And then the threat of substitute products, well, yeah, absolutely. More products are now available as a result of the internet and information technology. So information systems can help offset many competitive forces, such as computer-aided design and manufacturing, to help firms meet customer demands when customers have a high degree of bargaining power, for instance. But they can also be challenging. So we're thinking about, okay, we've looked at the forces that we're having to deal with to be competitive in an industry. How are we going to identify how to compete? Okay, we've got to think about how we're competing. You know, with this identifying where to compete, we've now got to think about how we can compete. And we've got to come up with a strategy. And determining how a company competes is one of the most important decisions an organization must make. Okay, and here we have a model that helps organizations determine how best they can compete in the marketplace to counter the effects of the 5 forces. Okay, so our y-axis is market focus. Are we looking at a very small part of the market? We're looking at a very broad segment of the market. And then our x-axis is this differentiating attribute. Are we just going at one end for a low cost, or are we at the other end trying to provide a product that can't be created by anybody else? We're going for this unique factor. And typically we'll see 5 areas that organizations will try to compete on. Let's look at these 5 in terms, and let me give you an example. Okay, so top left, we're going for a broad market, we're going for a wide area, and we're going for a low cost strategy. Whenever I think about that, there's one organization that kind of jumps in to me, and that's Walmart. Walmart, trying to give you everything to the organization. They buy on bulk, they get the cheapest prices, they sell at a cheaper price, they make a lot of money, so they have a low cost strategy, very broad market. If I compare to something like a broad market with a differentiation strategy, so it's not low cost, they're going for something that's different, I think of something like Apple. So Apple, again, trying to be attractive to a wide segment, to everybody from professors to students to mums at home to dads at home to whoever, organizations. So a broad market, we're going to create a product that is different to anything else out there. And they've done that pretty successfully. If I look at a narrow market and a differentiation strategy, so we're looking at a very small area and we're looking at a differentiation strategy. A good example might be something like Porsche, the car maker. So they have much better quality. That's how they're going to differentiate. They're going to be unique, and they have a really good, strong brand name. So much better quality product than the competitors typically, and that's how they're going to differentiate. But it's only on a small segment of the market. And then I look at the narrow market and low cost strategy. You kind of think, oh, crikey, who could that be? The example I came up with was Redbox. Redbox, you know, these are the vending machines placed outside grocery stores and outlets to rent DVDs or movies for, you know, like $1 a go. I think that's a pretty good example of a narrow market and a low cost strategy. And you see them everywhere. And I think they do a pretty good job. So then you also have people who try and go for a little bit of everything, you know, the best cost provider strategy. So I'm going to try and meet all the different areas in the middle. And I was thinking, who does that? Who could be a good person, a good organization in the middle? And I came up with Dell. You know, so the products are reasonably good quality at a pretty competitive price. They're there in the middle. Something like Ford, for instance, you know, make pretty good quality cars or trucks. And they're pretty competitive price, and so on and something like that. So they're trying to go for all of those different areas. So these are the 5 generic strategies that are pretty common that you will see. So the question now becomes, what else do organizations need to consider when thinking how to compete? And there are 2 other things that they look at, and these are resources and capabilities. Okay, so another point organizations must consider when determining how to compete are the resources and capabilities available to them. Here, we're going to look at the resources available. The more resources a company has, the stronger they can position themselves to compete against their rivals. Okay, so an example of a resource might be proprietary technology. It might be lots of money, lots of equity. It might be a loyal and established customer base. These are all the resources that I have as an organization that allows me to compete in a way that my competitors can't. So as it says there, reflects the organization's specific assets that are used to achieve a cost or differentiation from its competitors. Okay, so no matter what strategy an organization takes, doesn't matter if it's a broad market low cost strategy or a narrow market differentiated strategy, irrespective, it must have the resources and all the capabilities, which we'll talk about shortly, that are superior to their competitors. Okay, so that's resources. Okay, if I have the resources, then I'm going to have these distinct competencies. So look, product value, lower cost or higher quality, whatever it is, and that's going to give me a cost or differentiated advantage. That's going to give me a competitive advantage. But it's not just resources. We've also got to have capabilities as well. So capabilities, the organization's ability to leverage their resources in the marketplace. Okay, capabilities help to pursue the organizational strategy, so low cost leadership or whatever. This makes the product valuable to customers versus their competitors. So here, for example, sources of competitive advantage. This slide shows the source of capabilities available along with some pretty strong examples. The stronger the capabilities, the stronger the company is in leveraging their resources in the marketplace. So let's take an example. I don't know, Coca-Cola, proprietary. Everybody knows that the Coca-Cola recipe is top secret. It's proprietary. No one's ever been able to create it. One person knows apparently knows all the what goes into a Coca-Cola. So that's a capability. The fact that they can sell this proprietary, they have this proprietary approach for something that tastes so good, that is a source of competitive advantage. Think about Uber there on the right-hand side, data. All right, they have their ability to leverage that data, and they can use that to sustain a competitive advantage. They keep on knowing how to be better than, say, Lyft or anybody else who they're competing against. So having resources and then having the capabilities to leverage those resources gives you a source of competitive advantage. Now, we know about how to compete. We kind of think about it. We know from a resources capabilities, from a generic strategy, we know the competitive forces, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. How do orgs actually know exactly where value is being added as part of all the activities that they do within the organization? How do we identify how to compete? And we do so using something called the value chain. Okay, value chain analysis. Value chain analysis is this process of analyzing an organization's activities to determine where value is added to products or services. So we look at all the different little steps and pieces and processes that we follow as an organization, and we can work out, as a result of all the things that we do, where we are generating value. Okay, so we can then use this value chain analysis to differentiate ourselves even more so. And of course, as a result of doing all this, we need to have information systems. And information systems can help us to identify the opportunities for this value generation. Okay, so value chain analysis can highlight opportunities in which information system implementation can make an organization more effective, more efficient, and therefore secure a competitive advantage. So you kind of think of an organization as this big value chain. We're going to get supplies purchased and brought into the organization, right? That's the beginning of the chain. We then integrate these supplies to create a product, and then we market and sell these products and distribute them to our customers. If we can understand where we are generating the most value in that process, and we can use information systems therein, then you can certainly see the value therein. So we think about the role of information systems in this value chain analysis. And here we have an example of a value chain. Okay, here we have it. So at the top there, we have the inbound logistics, we have operations, we have outbound logistics, sales and marketing, and service. Okay, so inbound logistics, we are getting our raw materials from our suppliers. We're bringing them into our organization. So it's our supply chain. We'll have relationship management with our suppliers. We then have our operations where we take the raw materials and we might use information systems in that to actually develop the product, manufacture the product, whatever it is. We then have our outbound logistics. Again, we use information systems to reach out to our customers, to maintain a relationship with our customers. We do sales and marketing. Again, information systems, websites, social media. And then we have our services, maintaining our ongoing relationship with our products that we've sold to our customers. Again, using a customer service system. So we can see straight away, for instance, that information systems on our value chain is very, very important. But it's not just on the value chain itself. We've got to think about the supporting activities that kind of are the foundation for our value chain as well. And we can see those 5 areas here. These are typical areas, so administration, the infrastructure of the firm, HR, R&D, procurement, and so on and so forth. Again, from an information systems perspective, these are critical, these supporting functions for our organization, kind of all the key things that we do to get products in, raw materials in, make our products, sell them to client, our revenue generation. Information systems is important in that, but it's just as important in the supporting functions as well. Admin, the financial decision support system, helping us make decisions about how we're going to spend our finance. Firm infrastructure, the networks, the security, the private clouds. HR, employee self-service, so employees can look after their own needs, from a pension, from logging in, logging out, whatever it is. R&D, computer-aided design systems, and then procurement, buying raw materials, supply chain management. So you can see straight away that there is such an important role for information systems in the value chain analysis, understanding where we are generating value in the organization. Okay. We kind of talked on something earlier on. I just want to come back to it because it's so important. And this is the thing called the technology strategy fit. It's so important that when firms are choosing technologies to implement, they make sure the technologies support the business strategies in place. You're going to get in an organization many different projects that appear to be justified for an organizational strategy and making sure you have the right information systems in place. But of course, you're only going to have so much resources available to you, and therefore you've got to choose the projects that make the most sense to you. Okay, so by making sure that the projects selected are focused on helping the company meet its core business objectives, a company can help ensure that the projects are adding value. Therefore, we need to make sure that our technology, our information technology, and our business strategy are aligned. They're going in the same direction. Okay, if this requires a significant payoff for an information system implementation, there must be, as a result of this, the benefits being able to see and to be measured within the organization. Okay, we're going to talk more about this in chapter 7 later on in the semester, and this is where we tie into our business models. Okay, these business models, we need to think about what are the business models that we're going to be following and using to be competitive. Okay, so you've got to remember, we need to have our technology strategy aligned to our business strategy. If they are, then everything's great. But we've also got to remember we've only got limited resources, we've only got limited budget, so we need to prioritize those projects in the technology world that are going to have the biggest, most positive change on our organizational outcome. Okay, fantastic. So that's the end of our first learning objective. Let's move into our second learning objective. So describe how information systems support business models used by companies operating in the digital world. Okay, so a business model and a business strategy is slightly different. Let's look at that now. So a business model is a summary of a business's strategic direction that outlines how objectives will be achieved. So a business model specifies the value proposition as well as how a company will create, deliver, and capture value. Okay, so organizations need to determine the best business model to apply in order to be successful. So in this section, we're going to look at several of these models that can be considered. Okay, so there we have it at the bottom. A business model is a summary of a business's strategic direction that outlines how objectives will be achieved. So it specifies the value proposition as well as how a company will create, deliver, and capture value. So a little bit more detail. A business model reflects the following. What does a company do? How does it do it uniquely? In what way does it get paid for doing it? What are the resources and activities needed? And what are the costs involved? How a company answers these 5 questions will dictate A, what industry the company is competing in, B, how competitive it is in that industry, C, what, if any, competitive advantage the company enjoys, and D, how profitable the company is or can be. It'll also dictate how and where IS, information system investments, can be used to execute a competitive strategy and sustain an advantage over competitors. So, how can a firm earn revenue, generate profits, and produce a superior return on invested capital, right? How am I going to make more money and be more successful than my competitors? Okay, so let's look at some of the different ways that we can generate revenue. All right, well, let's look at some revenue models, for instance. Revenue models in the digital world. So what does it say? A revenue model describes how the firm will earn revenue, generate profits, and produce a superior return on invested capital. So the most important ingredient for any organization is determining how to generate revenue. So a revenue model describes how the firm will earn revenue, how it will generate profits, and produce a superior return on investments, on the money they're investing in the organization. Here we have 7 examples of different revenue models. So let's look at some examples for each. Affiliate marketing, you may not have come across before. This is paying businesses that bring or refer companies. So for instance, Amazon have this Amazon Associates program. I don't know if you know about it. You put a link on your website to Amazon, and each time you get a click on it and they go to Amazon, you get some money. All right, so that's affiliate marketing. Advertising, well, that's pretty simple. Facebook, you do advertising on Facebook. Subscription as a generation of revenue. Netflix, you can subscribe to Netflix. Licensing, antivirus licensing, something like Norton. Transactions fee or brokerage, each time you do a transaction, the company will take a little cut of it, something like PayPal. Traditional sales, Amazon, you know, you get a product, you pay for it, away you go. And then this thing called freemium. Has anybody ever come across freemium? Freemium, an example of freemium is Skype. All right, so Skype is essentially this idea that, well, let's look at freemium in a little bit more detail. Freemium, what does it say? A marketing approach companies use to obtain customers by offering something for free to build a large customer base, and then they charge a premium for unrestricted versions with more functionality. So this is a relatively new concept. It's only been around for 10, 15 years or so. It's become very popular among new and innovative companies. So it relies on the marketplace to attract a large number of users for a free trial or use of an application. So once hooked, they are encouraged to subscribe to a premium version of the app with a large number of features that add value to the customer's use of the app. So do you know, this is a bit horrifying, do you know what the basis of freemium is? I'm just going to give you about 5-10 seconds to think about where does the idea of freemium come from, and you'll be shocked. It actually comes from drug dealing. Okay, things like heroin dealing. So you have a free offer. You get, hey, have some heroin. You take it, you get addicted, and then you start having to pay for your fix. All right, that's the basis of freemium, and then you can start paying, and you start paying more for different types of drugs, and so on and so forth. So a little bit worrying when you think about how business models are derived. So that's freemium. So we thought about revenue models in the digital world. What about platform-based business models and this thing called the sharing economy? And here we have a digital platform, and this enables other businesses or users to co-create value as seen in the examples today. So a digital platform is a different type of business model where, example, it's created for innovative products that could quickly be pushed to the customer. Essentially, what it's all about is you creating a marketplace where somebody comes in to buy a product, somebody comes in to sell a product, and as a result of you creating that marketplace, you take a cut of that sale or purchase. Okay, so you're essentially creating a marketplace for vendors and consumers to meet. So rather than providing a service, you're providing a digital platform to help others to meet, for a transaction to occur, and value to be generated. So for instance, value of products. So somebody sells something on Amazon or somebody sells something on eBay. You want to go and buy it or you want to go and sell it. So eBay take their cut. Services, Uber, somebody is driving a car, someone wants a car to be driven for them. They provide that service, they take their cut. PayPal, somebody wants to buy a product, somebody wants to sell a product, they will facilitate that purchase and they'll take their cut, and so on and so forth. So a platform-based business model is something that is quite interesting. A sharing economy kind of ties into it. A sharing economy, like the platform-based model, what's the definition here? An economic system in which assets or services are shared between private individuals, either free or for a fee, typically by means of the internet. So this is basically all about shared ownership of products as they are produced and improved. So here, example, we have something called Car2Go. All right, Car2Go. So instead of having to buy your own car, you can have access to cars that are parked around the city, and you can book a car for a certain time and drop it off after you're finished with it, and so on and so forth. So you no longer have to own an asset. It's all about having access to the asset that is more important. This is also known as a collaborative economy, as well as a sharing economy, a collaborative economy. So it's not ownership of the asset that's now important, it's now access to the asset. And so it's a different way. So now we have a different model. So we had revenue models, we've had platform-based models. What about service-based models? The service-based business model is found in many industries where the buyer is in control, and therefore there's not much profit margin to be made from selling something to the buyer. So when this happens, the person who's selling the product is usually working not just to sell the product and make a little bit of a profit, because they're not going to make much profit. The way they're going to make money is to kind of get this long-term maintenance service contract in exchange for the sale of the product at a reduced price. Okay, so they realize they can't get much money out of selling the product, so they won't try to. Instead, they're going to try and get a longer term maintenance service contract, which is where they're going to generate their revenue. This is also referred to as XaaS, or X as a service, and we'll talk about that later on in the semester when we talk about cloud computing. So here we have example, Rolls-Royce and Boeing. Rolls-Royce make airplane engines, and they don't sell them for much more than cost to make them. The money that they make is from the maintenance, okay, the ongoing maintenance of the engines, and then selling the data of the ongoing use of the engines, the performance data, to Boeing, for instance, or whoever it is. So it's the ongoing service-based model, the contract, that actually generates the revenue. So there we've seen different types of business models. How interesting. Which one's the most appropriate for my organization? Well, whatever decision I make will have a fundamental impact on the future of my organization. We go to our last learning objective, ladies and gents: explain why and how companies are continually looking for innovative ways to use information systems for competitive advantage. Before we do that, we've got to think about, what do we mean by innovation? So innovation, well, first of all, let's stay at the top. Key for organizations attempting to gain or sustain a competitive advantage. And innovation, creating new products or services that return value to the organization. How can I generate something that my competitors cannot, that is going to be valuable and to the organization, right? It's going to give me something back in a way that my competitors can't, okay? Tied into that, we have these kind of examples of radical innovations, also known as disruptive innovations, okay, that use a markedly new or different technology to access new customer segments and significantly greater benefits. We read off the bottom of the screen. So to differentiate itself, an organization often must deploy new state-of-the-art technologies to do things even better, even faster, and even more cheaply than rivals that are using older technologies. Now, one of the double-edged sword curses and wonderful things about being in our world of information systems, that technology is wonderful. We're always getting access to new opportunities. But once you're on that bandwagon, you can't jump off. You have to stay on board forever and ever and ever if you want to be competitive. Because if you are not innovating at all times, guess what? Your competitors are. And if they're innovating and you're not, you're going to get left behind. Let me give you some examples of radical innovation and some of the displaced technologies that they replaced. So think about digital photography. Digital photography, we all do it on our iPhones nowadays, very, very easy. What did they disrupt? What did they replace back in the day? Chemical photography. Back in the day when I was your age, I had to go to the CVS of the world and buy a camera film and put it into my camera and take all those up and hope they looked okay, and then take it back to the CVS or whatever it was, and then make sure that the pictures came back in due course. And it was a pain in the proverbials. It was so frustrating. So chemical photography, no longer. Online retailing, the internet, online shopping, e-shopping. You know, I hate shopping. My wife used to love shopping. And one of the stupidest things I ever did when we were young, when I was courting her, back when I was young, and I was young once upon a time, ladies and gentlemen, but when I was courting my wife, this kind of beautiful young lady that I'd seen across the pub back in London, and I was walking her out and trying to impress her with the Skinner charm, oh yes, and she wanted to go shopping, and I said, I'd love to go shopping with her. And then the stupidest thing, here's a tip for you, ladies and gents, and I guess this is more for the boys than for the girls, but a big, really important tip. When you go out with someone that you're trying to impress and you go shopping, when they ask you your opinion for something on a piece of clothing, please, please, please don't give good feedback. Give really bad, inappropriate feedback from the off. One of the stupidest things I have ever done was give my honest, best effort feedback to my wife because she placed value on my decision for her clothes shopping. Now, I don't know about you. I hate shopping, period. I hate clothes shopping especially, and clothes shopping for my wife, with my wife, is one of the things that I can't say in polite society because I absolutely loathe it. The fact that I gave really good feedback to her when she asked me a question when we were dating earlier on has meant that ever since I have had to get involved in her decision making. And it was the stupidest. I'm going off on a tangent again, aren't I? Anyway, that's a tip for the wives. Online retailing versus bricks and mortar retailing. My wife doesn't go shopping in shops anymore, especially now with COVID, but she's a demon shopping online for clothes, and I still get involved. But luckily, it's much less painful because I can do it from my sofa. Digital music is another example. Digital music, we download off things of Spotify and Apple and so on, and what are iTunes. I know in the old days when I was your age, it was CDs and records and vinyl and cassettes and blah, 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 blah. And luckily we don't have those anymore. Yeah, they're pretty good examples of radical innovations. So the question becomes, right, you as an organization, you want to innovate. What does that mean? You've got to try and think about what is the new thing? What's the new areas that are going to be an innovative area? You've got to predict the next new thing. So kind of with this plethora of new information technologies, new information systems becoming available, how can you possibly choose winners? Indeed, how can you even keep track of all the new breakthroughs, new products, new versions, new ways of using technologies? Which of these new technologies is going to be important for you? Which one will make you? Which one will break you? Some are here, of what we see on the screen. Some are still a decade away. Brainwave interfaces, quantum computing. We're almost there, you know. We're almost there. What else do we have? Flexible displays. You know, whoa, whatever is it? Which one? Augmented reality, we're certainly there now. Where are we going to be? Which one am I going to spend a lot of money to invest in, which I think is going to be an innovative technology that's going to be useful for us? The thing about successful innovation, ladies and gents, is it's difficult. Innovation can bring great rewards, but typically it's not very easy. Some innovations only give a short-term advantage. They're readily copied by competitors once they see how it works. And when there are competing technologies, there is no guarantee that the one a company chooses to embrace will become the market standard. Therefore, if you're going to invest in it, it's going to be risky, right? Companies also often have to choose a limited set of options to pursue out of a wealth of opportunities. Resources are constrained, time is limited, information about the different options is imperfect. So it's difficult, right? And the chances are that you're not always going to get it right. How do you get innovation? Where are your sources of innovation? All right. What do you need in an organization to achieve innovation? Open innovation. You may have heard about open innovation. This is one way of embracing innovation. What does it say here? Can prove beneficial when you integrate external stakeholders into the innovation process. Think about, let me give you an example of Marriott, the hotel. So Marriott are always looking to improve their services, for instance. I didn't know that, but that's the case. And there are people online who are obsessed with Marriott and hotels and improving services. So what they did is they post problems online and they reach out to the community who are interested in hotels, just the likes of you and me and Joe Blogs out of society. And they ask them to have a go at fixing some of these problems. And they offer a reward for whatever the best solutions and fixes that they are sharing. So open innovation is this idea of reaching out to external stakeholders and getting them engaged in the innovation process. So the question now becomes, okay, we decided we need to innovate. We know we need to innovate. What do I need to have in my organization to have a chance of being successful in my innovation? The thing to remember, innovation isn't something every company can do. The company has to have an organization and process that allows innovation to move forward and not get caught up in office politics and competing agendas. If a company decides to pursue innovation, it either needs the resources in-house or it needs to contract with a partner that has the appropriate resources. A company that doesn't allow risk taking and the occasional failure will punish people who try to take risk and innovate. And as a result, that will stifle any possibility of innovation. So from a process perspective, you've got to bypass bureaucracy. You've got to say no politics. Political squabbles ain't going to happen. We're not going to allow it in this organization. So you've got to have the process, you've got to have the resources, you've got to have the people who know and have the skill and have the time and the resources to make an approach to innovation, and so on and so forth. I'm going to give you, this is a screen. If you've not been in my class before, you may be surprised by it. My wife's a cancer doctor, I think I told you. So my wife works, she's a chair of department in the MD Anderson, which is the cancer hospital here in Texas. And she works on typically curing different types of cancer one's called leukemia, which is a blood cancer, and there's lots of different types. And she also does one with a type of cancer called lymphoma. Lymphoma is a cancer of your lymph system. I don't know if you know about the lymph system, but you have lymph nodes all around your body. And the idea of a lymph system is to drain all the waste that comes out of your blood and your skeleton and your organs and so on and so forth. All right. So she treats patients who have leukemia and lymphoma. And here, this is an example of her innovating. She had a patient who had a very bad form of lymphoma. Now, what's it say at the top? This is a PET scan, or it's like a CT scan of this patient. Okay, this patient is a male. I think he's in his mid-50s, something like that. And where you can see the dark areas in his body, that's either one of two things. Okay, so the dark areas is a special dye. What does it say? Radioactive traces. So where there's lots of chemical activity, such as cancer cells, you'll see an image. It'll be dark. But also in the brain at the top there, and the kidneys, and in the bladder at the bottom, that's also dark because there's a lot of chemical activity going on. So you can see around his neck, all those dark areas around his neck, in his armpits, across his chest, and all across his tummy, all those dark areas and around his groin, those are all tumors. And he's already failed 6 rounds of treatment already. He's had chemotherapy, he's radiotherapy, he's had stem cell transplants, and so on and so forth. Now, the MD Anderson embraces risk and embraces innovation, and it gives a lot of money to coming up with new approaches to treating cancer. This is the same patient 30 days later after my wife has gone through, she's created this new product, and it's very complicated. She's published papers about it, and it's kind of what's made her name in the field. This is the same patient 30 days later, okay? He has no cancer left. He's gone into complete remission. Now, not only am I very proud of her, and if you've been in my class before, you know I kind of sing to the roof about sing the praises to the rooftops about how wonderful my wife is and how clever she is, much cleverer than I am. But think about what it's taken for her to get to here, okay? Has she embraced failure? Absolutely. Has she been able to not get involved in political squabbles and people trying to trip her up and stop happening and bureaucracy? Absolutely. It took her about 6 years to come up with the idea to come up with a situation where we have a patient who's responding like this. Now, this patient's gone into complete remission. He's cancer-free in 30 days, having already failed 6 rounds of previous treatment. He's actually, you know, if you look on the left, he's probably got weeks to live, poor chap. On the right, he's now completely cancer-free. An interesting side story is that this is on a clinical trial for this product. When you're going to sign up for a clinical trial, it's kind of like the last stop shop for getting treatment. Okay, nothing else has worked. And you sign up and you say yes, and if I do respond, I promise to come back every 3 to 6 months and do follow-up treatment because I see how long it lasts for. Hopefully it lasts for a long time, but you still have to check it. They can't get hold of this patient. It's very funny. They can't get hold of him because this was about 3 years ago. He's too busy partying, ladies and gents. He's flying backwards between Vegas, LA, San Francisco, and New York, living his life to the full because he thought he didn't have a life to live. And they can't get hold of him. It's funny. It's brilliant. And good luck to him. It's annoyed my wife, but kudos to him, right? Think about what it took from an innovation perspective at the MD Anderson for Katie, my wife, to be able to do that. Isn't that great? So I just wanted to share you with that example. Right. How do you go about making innovation choices? So many organizations have trouble getting away from the traditional way of doing things because of the perceived risk that innovation inherently brings. However, organizations that have embraced innovation have frequently been rewarded. Okay, and here we have a book, The Innovator's Solution, which talks about the process that organizations can follow to more effectively respond to radical innovation in the industry. So there's 4 steps. Start early, have leadership that support the idea of innovation, have a team of innovators, and then educate the organization about the benefits of organization so that the culture of innovation is embraced by everybody. Okay. How do you implement innovation? This is an interesting model. And this is published in a journal called ISR. It was published a long time ago, 18 years ago, but it stood the test of time. And ISR, by the way, ladies and gents, is one of the top MIS journals in the world, very difficult to publish into. This is something called the e-business innovation cycle, essentially. And what it's about is finding out determining what are the technologies that are possibly going to help you innovate, then taking those technologies and matching them with the opportunities available to you as an organization and your industry, and then executing that and making sure that you're taking your value proposition that you think you can bring to the organization to the market, and then getting feedback, and then going through that process time and time again. So this e-business innovation cycle is based on choosing technologies, matching them to opportunities, and executing against that opportunity. After each execution, there's an assessment phase where learning occurs, and then the process starts all over again. The most difficult part of all the cycle is the first, is choosing the enabling or merging technology, which actually can be very, very difficult. Matching the selection with the business opportunities is the next most difficult phase. So there we go at the very bottom. We've got to scan the environment. We might have, you see where it says the ET? That's our emerging technology unit. So we're going to be looking out there. We're looking for new opportunities. Once we've come up with some possible new innovation areas available to us, we're going to match what we've found to economic opportunities. We're then going to select the technology of choice. We're going to take it to market, and then we're going to get feedback and value from our organizations. Just taking more about our investments in radical innovation, there are 3 things, all right? 3 different ways to think about investments in radical innovation. Now, I'm going to tell you now, ladies and gents, if you put this to different departments in the business school, they will challenge you to the cows come home. But actually, this is really, really important. The first thing, put technology ahead of strategy. Technology is everything. Technology changes all the time, constantly. Changes in technology happen so quickly. If you put strategy before technology, you're going to be playing catch up. If you put technology ahead of strategy, you can make sure that technology the technology and the changes therein is always going to be driving your organization forward. So have your technology ahead of your strategy, which is kind of going against what I said earlier on. But from an innovative perspective, this is what you need to think about. Definitely put technology ahead of marketing. Marketing is down the line. And remember that innovation is continuous. If you are no longer being innovative, guess what? You're no longer being competitive. Another way of thinking about innovation, just an alternative, is you've probably done this yourself, is crowdfunding. Many entrepreneurs have found many a new innovative product using crowdfunding. Crowdfunding allows a person who has minimal funds to secure funding commitments in exchange for any contracted enumeration if the product goes to market and is successful. So crowdfunding, the idea of securing business financing from individuals in the marketplace to fund an initiative. And that's very, very, I did one, the Coolest Cooler, which is disastrous. I'll talk about more in a class in a couple of weeks' time. Right, that concludes today's class. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a fun class, kind of sets the scene very, very well for us. Here are your, it's not individual assignments, sorry, it's a typo, it's group assignment chapters. So for chapter 2, group 3s and group 1 are going to do case 1 group on page 85, answer those 2 questions. Group 6 and group 4 are going to be doing streaming video on page 86. And then groups 5 and 2 have the ethical dilemma, the ethics of the sharing economy on page 68. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this class. I've much enjoyed sharing it with you. If you have any questions, please do reach out to me. I'm going to be releasing this video before the next class, and I'll drop you an email as well. And then if you want to ask me any questions, then do reach out to me during the Zoom session of our next class on Wednesday. So this is Dr. Skinner signing off. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. And